Yourself, Lawrence, and then we're live.
All right, thank you. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. It is October 7th, and once again, it is Friday, and we are on a roll. So today we're going to talk about, first of all, of course, we know the slaughterhouse of failure is not in our destiny. We shall persevere until we succeed. We know that. Got to inculcate that. But so today we're going to talk about just literally, we're going to talk about sales. There are 5 points we're going to cover. And I think Dan would like to tell us what those 5 points are initially, and then we'll delve into it a little bit.
All right. So, last, month or so, we've been really focused on sales and demystifying sales and, talking about different ways to sell. Because the reason that we're focusing on this is because we have a tendency to overcomplicate sales, right? We tend to think it's this difficult thing to do that most people will say, I don't like sales. I'm not good at sales. I can't do sales. I'm not a people person, whatever it may be. There's a million different excuses that people give for not wanting to sell. So we came up with a five-step process to never worry about selling again. So number one is make sure you believe in your product or your service. This is sales 101. If you don't believe in your product or your service, it's going to be very difficult to sell to people because they're going to read right through that, right? So this is the foundation of authentic selling. Authentic being the key word. Knowing your product and your service, and then being able to, by your passion and your knowledge base and your belief in what you're doing, that's automatically going to come across to your prospect.
Of course, the reason for that is because if you're knowledgeable about what you have and you like what you've got and you're passionate about what you've got, remember, stories sell, facts tell. So, you need to, what we're selling is either the story or what the product does or why you should have it. But we only can do that if we're really knowledgeable about the effects it has, what it is. You don't need to know all the ingredients of all the products. I mean, for sure you don't. You just got to explain what the product does, what the emotion can come from it, or what the solution can come from what you're using. But, we're selling the emotion. And that's what's important. I don't know how a cell phone works, but we all use it every day. And we get a satisfaction or not out of it, but we use the cell phone every day, but we don't know how it works. Same with our products. We don't need to know exactly what's in it and how it works. We just got to know that it works. And in order to do that, you've got to know the product. For example, I just put a thing on a little post on Facebook. My antioxidant score was 101,000. I mean, that's pretty high, even for me. Why is that? Because I'm saying the stuff works. I'm trying to prove it. I'm trying to have integrity, be authentic about it. My product works. There we are. I'm proving it. I'm testing it. I'm measuring it. I'm showing that it is possible. So that's what it's about, the first part.
Yes, I have a funny story about that happened this week, and I just thought of it when you started talking, Lawrence. Is as some of you know, I do a lot of work with our veterans and providing products and services to veterans, and we just got a new product that we're going to launch out to the veterans. And Kate's sitting here. I've got this thing in my office, and Kate looks at me and she's like, "How did you sell this thing? You don't even know anything about it." And I'm like, "Well, I know they had a problem. And I know that this is a better solution than what they were expecting. Yeah. And I really believe that this is going to help the veterans or help the customer, which are in this case are the doctors and the veterans." And she's like, and she, it dawned on me. She said, "Well, I just don't get how you can sell something without knowing that much about it." or having tried it. And I said, I sold total joint replacements for 25 years. I never tried a total joint replacement, a knee, hip, shoulder replacement. It was a need that the physicians had, and I solved their problem, whether it was from a product standpoint, from a service standpoint, or whatever it was. But I always believed in what I was selling, or what the service that I was providing. So, well, as Lawrence said, you don't need to always know everything. You know, when people get into our business, they, you know, I think there's some hesitancy because there's a lot to learn about nutrition, about the device, about the way the company works. You don't need to know everything. You just need to believe in the product, believe in the service that we're providing to physician or healthcare providers. So
yeah, there's that
you just need, yeah, you know, you just really need to be explain what the product does, or what the product is and how it works. Go ahead, Lawrence. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, you know, this famous old diaper story. You know, you could, Johnson & Johnson sells diapers. I mean, the salesman for Johnson & Johnson is probably a 47-year-old man selling diapers. And he's just got to know that the stuff works. He doesn't have to actually physically use them, although of having his kids use them, he'll know the emotion of why he needs to sell it, or why people need it. But I'm just saying, you just need to know what the stuff does and why it works.
He may also be forecasting his future, knowing that there's going to be a day where he may need them again. But anyway, number two, the second step is developing two personas. You have to have two personas. One is the educator, and the other one is the facilitator. Understand your product. How do you communicate the problem it's solving? Know how to guide your customers through that purchasing process, how they acquire your product, how they pay for the product, you know, how they utilize the product. Those are all really important things. You know, when we talk about sales, we all think that we have to be a salesperson. And when we think of a salesperson, we normally think of a used car salesman who's really trying to pressure us into buying something. I've always taken a facilitator, an educator, a consultative approach to sales, where I'm not a salesperson. I'm part of the team, and I'm trying to do what's best for the customer or the prospect, and solving a problem that they may have, right? So if you know what their problem is, you can help educate them on what you're doing, what your product, the purpose that it serves, and then facilitating that sales process.
So I think in our case, when we're talking about healthcare professionals, and actually this is a really important point, this two people thing, because the healthcare professional, generally speaking, is a professional in the health care of that person he's talking to. And he is absolutely not a salesperson, generally speaking. So that is a person that is important and essential to be able to guide the person into knowing that they need a certain product and why they need it. Then that's the educator. But the second part of it is the sales part, which is equally important, because you could be an educator and starve to death because you know all the answers, but you haven't got enough food on the table. So you've got to actually be able to know how the facilitator works, which in turn means knowing all the orders, the apps we've got, the systems we've got in place. How do we push the button about, you know, ordering? How do we have a website? How do we get the product? How do we get paid? How do the products arrive to the patient's house, the customer's house, home? How, you know, all of these are minutiae details, and any one of those details that we miss, we actually could drop the ball. And, you know, I joke about pushing buttons, but my wife is probably one of the best button pushers there is. You know, Amazon, Instacart. She doesn't even go shopping anymore. Just pick up the phone. Oh, we need, you know, a hair clip. Well, Amazon on a hair clip. I'm exaggerating, but I'm just saying that there's somebody, I don't even know how to do some of the stuff, orders, or how to even do some of the stuff, because she's gotten good at that. And that's in a business. You've got the educator who's going to explain to you what you need and why and how. and you need it. And the credibility comes from the professional. It's a healthcare professional in this case, or it's a hairdresser telling the patient, the customer, that she needs or he needs a certain type of shampoo or a certain type of hair ointment. That's the professional. And then how do we get it? How do I get it? Oh, just go online and do it. So, whoa, hold on. Go where online? How do I get it? Where do I pay? How do I pay? So all of these things are the kind of teamwork that a practice has to have.
You know, you said something that kind of hit a nerve with me, and that's that we got to convince people. I don't think that we should ever be convincing people that they need what we have or what we're offering, right? We need to find those people that want or need what we have, not convince people. So if you're trying to convince people through having conversations with them or providing them more and more information, more and more studies, they're not the right prospect. So number 3 is you need to study your customers, right? What's your ideal customer profile? And when we're talking about healthcare providers, there's 2 different types of healthcare providers from my perspective. We have treaters, people that will just, they want to see a patient. What symptom do you have? And they give them a cream or if it's dermatologic, or, if it's something else going on, they give them a pill, right? Those are treaters. Healers are people that actually want to look for the root cause of what's going on and fixing the problem, not just putting a Band-Aid on it. So from my perspective, we should really be focusing in our ideal customer profile as a healer, right? People that before money, before everything else, they want to help their patients and treat their patients the correct way by looking at the root cause, not just treating the patients by throwing a prescription at them and sending them out the door, right, in 7 minutes. Or those physicians are spending more time with their patients to figure out what's truly going on. Who are you talking to? Are you talking to the wrong people? Are you not placing scanners? If you're not placing scanners, you're probably talking to the wrong people, right? And we say this is a numbers game, and part of it is a numbers game, but you can increase your odds by targeting the right ideal customer.
Well, that's the whole point of the end game of the scanner, is that it's going to be put to a good use. And the first person that has to see it is the person that's going to be promoting it. And that obviously could be the healthcare provider, the person that's going to actually help the patient. But there's the other component to it. There's the healthcare provider that's going to use the product, use the scanner, and educate the patient so that the patient understands why they need to have this without convincing them. And then there's the other side of the person, the other type of people that we're looking at too, is who's going to get to the doctor or to the healthcare provider. So that's why we look for medical device reps. We look for entrepreneurs. We look for people who are going to actually be able to get to that healthcare provider. He or she's going to do the actual promoting of the health and the solutions for the health. But who's going to get to that healthcare provider? That's another component to it. And we've got to know that person. If it's a person who's been on a W-2 all his life or her life, they're not very likely to jump into a 1099 and say, yeah, I want to be an entrepreneur, and I really know all my markets, and I know all the doctors, and I believe in myself sufficiently, and I'm sure of myself to be able to do that. So there are several components to get to the customer that we're looking at a customer which is a healthcare provider. We're looking at which is, as Dan defined, whether one's a healer or one's just a treater, and the person in the office that's actually going to execute the sales and not execute, that's going to execute the delivery of the product and the collection of the money. And then who's going to get to the doctor? Who do we want to work with us? Because that's another component.
Yeah, and then, on top of that, we really, once we've identified our ideal prospect, right, and we've started to educate them, and we've been that facilitator, and we have, that belief in the product and the service, then we can move on to figuring out how they typically make their purchasing decisions. Who is that person? Who is the decision maker in the practice? Is it the physician or is it a practice manager? Right? And then who's going to integrate this into the practice? Is the physician going to, if he's a healer, is he going to be the one that's talking about the scanner, what the score means, and how we can fix some of their nutritional deficiencies? Right. So that at that point, then we get into kind of a discovery phase of really trying to find out how their practice works, who's going to be making the decisions, who's going to be working with the scanner and the nutritional products, and through that, we can also discover what some of their pain points are, right? And then we can utilize those pain points to really drive the point home that not only are you doing this for your patients because you're a healer, but it's also going to help your practice, right? It's going to help your practice from a financial perspective. And I don't always lead with the financials because I think that comes across in the wrong way, especially if you're talking to a healer. A healer isn't going to really put as much emphasis on the money, right? He's going to want the emphasis to be on the patient and what this can do for his patients. So you need to know your prospect and the ideal prospect. If you're talking to a treater and they're interested in this, they're probably going to want to know about the money, right? Because they're just going through patients, 7 minutes every patient, eight patients an hour, whatever it may be. And they're not really concerned with healing. They're just concerned with treating and they're more concerned with the financial piece of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, but that's why it's important, as you said, to know what is the customer we're looking at. There are a bunch of them. There's the patient. So we've got to be able to get the healer or the treater to understand that we've got something for the patient. The end game, of course, is the patient. But we've got to educate, we've got to show that the person that has the scanner or that has the device or that has the products, why these are important. We've also got the staff to take care of, for them to understand how to put in the orders, how to maintain the orders, how to have continuity. This is another big thing where we all fall down, in my opinion. We're all gung-ho about making a sale and placing an order and so on, but we should be celebrating every time somebody has renewed their subscription, because then we're now making a difference. If we know that the subscriptions are being renewed and we've really got a high percentage of continuity in our subscriptions, then we've done a good job by training some of the staff and some of the people in that place, in that clinic or that center where we've placed the scanner. And so that is, I think, important as well, because it's not just the first part of it, it's the whole continuity thing. And even there, we've got to educate ourselves, and this I'm talking for me, that we've got to be able to be more consistent and on top of revisiting the people to whom we've placed a scanner with. We've got to be almost on a certainly a monthly conversation and say, how's it going? What's happening? How are your sales? I see. In other words, as if it's our own office, and we should be following them more closely than placing a scanner. And where was that place that guy got it from? No idea which even state he's in or she's in. So we've got to follow that more closely, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, with those comments, Lawrence, I'm going to jump ahead to the fifth step, which is perfect the follow through. And then we'll go back to 4.
Right.
We need to perfect the follow through. This is where relationships are made and where they're maintained. And in order for us to maintain high productivity in these practices or in the healthcare provider's hands, we need to constantly be chatting with them, as Lawrence said, maybe on a monthly basis, maybe on a bi-monthly basis. It just depends on the particular person that you're dealing with. Some people are going to want more hand-holding and attention than others. Some people are going to want less, but you still need to maintain that relationship and make sure that relationship is on a solid footing, right? Because if you don't, then that's where things start to disintegrate in a practice. You may have somebody being very successful with the scanner because they're excited about it in the first 2 or 3 months. And then maybe that excitement starts to wane. That's when you need to realize by keeping your hand on the pulse of your business and seeing when there may be some trouble at some of these accounts and jumping in and reinvigorating what's going on there by reminding them why they get involved with it in the first place, helping their patients, healing their patients, and maybe not for financial reasons. And then just not only just reinvigorating them, but then resubstantiating what this means to them and their patients.
There's something also that's worth mention, and that is we've had a lot of healthcare professionals who've had a huge number of personnel changes. They can't keep the staff. Oh, where's Joanne? She was running this thing so well. She did the amazing job for the first form. Oh yeah, she's gone to work somewhere else. So who's doing this? Well, we haven't really got anywhere yet. That's why you were placing 5 ADRs a week or 10 or whatever, and now you've gone to nothing. So we've got to keep our fingers on the pulse of the people that have that on our customers, on our clients who are the clinics and the centers that have the scanners and have those places. We've got to stay on top of them, but we've got to stay alongside them and see what's going on, because staff changes. Then we haven't spoken to that person for 4 months, and the staff has completely changed. We've got to go back there and redo it and get back into the saddle, because people get tired and they get distracted, the big one. And so this is something that I think we've got to stay on top of.
So we're going to backtrack here and go to step 4, and we're running low on time, so I want to make sure we get all these in, Lawrence. So I'm not discounting what you're saying. I just want to get through all the material. But number 4 is find people you can help and educate them. One of the things I love about this business is that in a lot of cases, we can be educated beyond what a physician knows about nutrition, right? Because they don't get a lot of schooling in nutrition, and we can actually help educate the ones that want to be educated. And that goes for helping a physician, but it also goes as scanner operators. Who do we know that we can help, and who that we can help through our nutritional products, right? But during this finding phase or prospecting phase of who we can help and educate, this is kind of where sales gets its stigma from, right? From cringy prospecting or one-sided discovery, where you're not doing it genuinely. You're just trying to find out what you can find out about the person for your uses, not necessarily for what you can do to help them. So it has to be kind of a give and a take, and it's a delicate balance, right? But just remember, if you believe in what you're selling and if you know your product, then this finding, helping, and educating phase of this can actually be really fun when it's done properly, right? So you want to personalize the experience to each unique customer you get in front of. You don't want to just have one script that you go with every single time you talk to somebody. You need to listen to who you're talking to during that education phase and that helping phase to figure out if you can even help them, or if they want to be helped, or if they want to be educated, right? So it's a give and a take. You ask questions and you listen more than you actually talk, and make it less one-sided from your perspective and more one-sided from your prospects perspective. That's how you're going to learn if you can help and if you can educate them. So always be serving through helping, educating who we want to talk to about what we have, making sure that they're actually a good prospect before we even enter into those conversations. So there's some things you can do before you even talk to those folks. If I'm talking to somebody on LinkedIn, I take a good hard look at their profile. Is there something in there that I can connect with them? Do we have any commonalities? Is there something in there that tells me that they're a healer, or that, my best prospects from a team member's perspective outside of a physician is somebody that maybe has had a health issue themselves and they're looking for a solution for themselves, or they've healed themselves through proper nutrition because they believe in it. They've seen what it can do firsthand, right? So from that perspective, that's somebody that I can help. That's somebody that I can, educate about what we have, how we can help physicians through these nutritional products. But ultimately, once you get through all those things, you don't want to be creating urgency during all of that, all of those 5 steps, unless there's urgency that actually exists. And by that, I mean, does a physician or does a healthcare provider or does a medical device sales rep or whoever you're talking to, is there a pain point that we can solve? And do they actually have a need for what we have? If they do, then we can place a little bit of urgency on it.
And also one of the things, Dan, is that we've got a whole smorgasbord of specialties of healthcare professionals that we're talking to. Could be a dermatologist, could be a gynecologist, could be a cardiologist. Every single one of those has a different take on what we have to offer. There is a common denominator, of course, for all of that, but there's also the fact that these are all such diverse specialties, and we've got to be able to understand that person that we're talking to from his or her point of view in a totally different specialty than the one we were talking to in the morning. One could be a sports therapist and the other one could be a gynecologist. So we've actually got to be very versatile in understanding who we're talking to. And this makes it more and more important to do your homework, because it's not just going in there and having the same spiel with everybody. It's really, really understanding who we're talking to.
So we had the first thing we said at the beginning of this talk was we have a tendency to overcomplicate sales, right? We need to get out of our heads. We need to quit sensationalizing sales, because ultimately we're just a bunch of creative problem solvers, right? So that's what we do as salespeople: consultative, educate, solve a problem, and do that creatively by finding out what your prospect actually needs, not what you think they need, right? Give them what's appropriate for them. It's going to be different for each individual person that you're talking to. So that conversation needs to be tailored to who you're talking to. And through all of those, if you master these kind of 5 things, you're going to see a lot higher success level, hopefully. So it's 10 o'clock. Lawrence, you want to take some questions, comments? I want to thank 2 people on the call really quickly. I'm watching Jim type away there. Jim, for those of you who don't know, Jim takes copious notes on every single call and sends them to Lawrence and I so we can take a look at them. But I was laughing a little bit during the call because it reminded me of the stenographer in court. And when I'm sitting there watching Jim go to town, you may have missed your calling, Jim. And then I want to thank Riley because it's 9:30 and I believe Riley was having a cocktail. All right, any questions? Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Good job, Jim. Any questions? Any comments? Nothing?
I have a comment. You guys give different types of presentations on different weeks, and I think each one just has a different resonance to it. This particular one today was just great because you gave us, you really so organized. You had 5 key points for us to truly try to think about and articulate as we try to increase our skill set in this business. And so thank you for that. This is another great one.
We may be, sometimes we're covering the same topics. We're just covering them in a little bit different way because, one way that we present the material may resonate with, 2 or 3 people on the call. If we do it again in a couple of weeks and in a different way, it may resonate with other people on the call. So I think it's important to, kind of be giving the information in a bunch of different ways so that it resonates with everybody. At some point. So thanks, Jim, for everything that you do. We really do appreciate the note taking and always great comments as well.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
All right, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the event in Utah. The people are all there, many people. Enjoy that event, learn a lot of things, come back inspired. And Riley, try and stay sober.
All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye. Thank you.